Do you feel you were born for more? Get ready to uncover your God-given purpose so you can impact the world with your gifts, your talents, and your story. Welcome to our Purpose Power Summit. I'm your host, Mimika Cooney, and today's guest is going to share how to live your brand authentically. As a business mentor, strategist, and self-confessed planning addict, Ashley teaches women in business the simple strategies they need to help grow their brand, income, and audience online. She's all about getting the results they need for their business quickly and with as little fuss and overwhelm as possible. As the founder of the Hello Boss community, Ashley is an avid community builder, people connector, and planning strategist. She's also a new mommy and has described by her friends as a stubborn optimist and a firm believer in building a business around a life you love and not the other way around. So I'm going to say welcome, Ashley. Welcome to the summit. I'm so excited to have you on the show today.
Thank you for having me, Mimika. I've been very excited about today, especially because it's another South African that I get to spend.
I know, right? So everyone listening here, because I'm in the US and you're in South Africa. So if you hear us sounding the same, you're like, well, yay, this is what we sound like, right? So it sounds like home to me.
I keep telling myself, slow down and not talk too quickly, especially when there's another South African in the room.
I know, right? We can talk at 100 miles an hour, so that's why we have to calm it down so you can actually understand us. But besides you trying to figure out our accent, now you know where that is from. We're definitely going to dig into some really awesome content, which doesn't matter what continent you live on, is applicable wherever you're at. So Ashley's got some great content she's going to share about how you can live your brand authentically in your life and your business. But before we get into the content, give our audience a little bit of a backstory about how you got to doing what it is you're doing today.
Originally thought my whole life I was going to be a teacher. That's what I wanted to do. I had also thought the best way to do that was possibly to go to Bible college in the States. So I was just out of school, working for my dad's business, trying to save as much money as I could. And with all the best intentions of going over to the States to study teaching at a Bible college. And I guess God had other plans for me because that didn't actually end up transpiring. I had to go for all sorts of medical tests and things like that before you go to America. And one of the tests you have to go for is a TB test, because if you live in Africa, you're exposed to TB here. And the doctor called me the day I went for the test and asked me to go in for an appointment with him the next day. So that was a little scary because I wasn't entirely sure what it was about specifically, but they actually ended up finding a dark mass on the x-ray in the chest cavity area. So long story short, I went for loads and loads of tests and scans and all sorts of things, which at 17 years old was the first time I'd ever been through anything like that in my life. And the doctors had said to me that the only thing they could put it down to is Hodgkin's lymphoma. And the only way to actually really figure out whether I had Hodgkin's was to remove the lump that they found, which was sort of right on the windpipe next to the esophagus, sort of quite weird. But that put all my plans for going to Bible college completely on the back burner. And fortunately for me, and I do believe it was through a lot of prayer and a lot of support and the people around me, that the lump was benign. So it wasn't malignant or ugly or anything like that. But my recovery it took me a little while to recover from it. And I tried again to go to the States. Didn't get the visa. And I do feel like all things in our lives happen for a reason. So even though we have the best intentions in the world, sometimes God's got other plans for us. And whether that's for ministry or for what purpose, we don't always get to know the reasons. But I ended up then working for a company as an office coordinator in the recruitment industry. Very, very quickly, within a year, was recruiting at 21 years old, the youngest in the business. And by 23, I was managing the branch in the local town that I lived in. And I decided that I wanted bigger adventures. I still had this longing to go to the States. So I jumped on a plane and I went to America and I worked on summer camp for 6 months. And it was one of the best times of my life. I had so much fun. And after that, went over to the UK and worked in the UK for 2 years in the recruitment space and did phenomenally well. And the only reason I came back to South Africa really was because of family. I've got quite a big family, and so I moved back to South Africa. Worked for the same business I was working for when I left here in recruitment, managing their branch here. But I think the reason why I'm including all of this is just to say that it's just amazing how sometimes we get pulled in a direction that we have no idea where we're going. But it all ends up only in hindsight do you actually see how everything just so carefully gets put together like a puzzle, and you would never have known it on the offset. But anyway, long story short, I worked in recruitment here for 2 years in South Africa for another business, left that company, started my own business. My dad's an entrepreneur, kind of runs in the blood, I think. So started my own business, and I did recruitment for 4 or 5 years. Ran a 7-figure business, was doing really, really well, but just didn't feel completely fulfilled in my work. And after doing a lot of soul searching and chatting to people that I was closest to, I realized that I have a gift for teaching, and that's always been something that has stuck with me right from the get-go. And a lot of people were asking me, how is it that you can run your own business, make your own money, and have a life like you have? You must be so disciplined, and it must be really hard to start a business. And I really felt pulled and called to teach other women how to have some sense of independence, running a business, and being able to have something that they can fall back on. And so that's kind of where it all started. And that's when I did a coaching course, started coaching people how to first I started life coaching. I knew that wasn't for me. Then I moved into business coaching, and I started teaching people how to use social media for their business and how to do all the things that I had done in my business in 4 or 5 years, taking it to the level that I did without using any of those spammy, salesy, yucky techniques. It was all just very honest marketing, all about personal branding and that kind of thing. So I did that, and then after a year of doing that on my own, I got quite lonely and just within the entrepreneurial space, and decided that I needed to connect with other entrepreneurs. So I started a Facebook group, as you do, and it's literally, that started in August 2015, and we now have almost 7,500 women in that community, where we all support each other in business, and we learn together, and we've made so many friends and done so many collaborations and things like that. So that's my background. Hello Boss is my baby. That community, I'm so very fond of every single one of those women. And then, of course, my day-to-day business, I'm still doing business coaching, business strategy coaching, and I've got some other big dreams for this year as well, which I will sort of keep on the back burner for now, but I'm very excited.
So, well, I tell you, that's what I love about these stories, is that you just never know where you're going to go, right? We do have these things. And as you mentioned earlier, you had that seed planted in you that you love to teach and share. And it's funny how things work out, but it's almost like we have to learn lessons and get skills along the way that we might not understand. Yeah. But what you're really good at, and what I would really look forward to, what you're going to share with us today, is how to actually uncover that authentic brand. Excuse me. Because a lot of us perhaps look at what somebody else is doing and we think we need to copy them, but that's not really what branding is about. And I know you and I love branding. We could talk about branding all day, because I do brand consulting too. And it's more than just a Coca-Cola logo, right? Mm-hmm. It's really about who we are, whether you're writing a book, starting a ministry, starting a business, even how you dress is your brand. But you've got some great tips about how we can actually uncover that, which is as well as a gift. Like part of our summit series, our speakers have kindly donated some great content, and Ashley's donated her 5 tips to uncover your authentic brand. So you can go ahead and download that at mimikacooney.com, click on the summit tab, and you can print that off. But you're going to go ahead and share a little bit about that with us today.
Yeah, so I wanted to share, the word authentic gets thrown around quite a lot these days, whether you're in business or in ministry or whatever sort of space you find yourself in. Even if you're gainfully employed, you'll hear your employers throw that phrase around quite a lot, about being authentic and true to yourself. And I think it also has been something that's been a bit lost in translation. So the more people hammer on about a certain phrase, sometimes the the genuineness of it gets lost in translation. And so sometimes what one person feels as being authentic is very different to what another person feels is authentic. So I want to really just share about branding specifically and what that means, what authenticity means within the branding kind of space. So ultimately, at the end of the day, there's two types of branding. There's your business branding, and then there's personal branding. And you'll hear that those two phrases come up quite often in branding. And I feel like business branding is great, and we can learn all the theory about it as much, and we can also do the same with personal branding about who you are as an individual and how to brand yourself as an individual. But I honestly feel that no matter what you do in your life, whether you're a sports coach or whether you're in ministry, a teacher, have your own business, that your personal brand and the brand of whatever it is that you take part in need to marry up together. That's what successful branding is being able to mesh the two together in a way that creates something that's very unique and quite enticing. And that's what people sometimes don't realize, is that it's the marriage of those two things together. What you're really good at and the space that you're in is a brand within itself, as well as your personal brand. And I think that's what helped me with the businesses that I've started and the community that I've started. So from a branding perspective, is to be able to get traction quite quickly and get people engaged and involved in learning a lot quicker than it ordinarily would take is because of brand authenticity. It's that living the brand, not just in the space you work in or minister in, but also just through your life and the way you come across. So the two need to be married up quite closely. So what I wanted to share with you are 5 tips on how to brand authentically, but it really always comes down to you as the individual. And that's the key to successful branding, is it really does come down to you. So whether you own Nike or whether you are a mom wanting to start a business selling diaper covers, it really does come down to the individual that owns it. And I think if you just look at some of the big names in business like Oprah Winfrey and Steve Jobs and Mark Zuckerberg and all these people that Sheryl Sandberg, all these people that we see and look to as in business as being super successful, they are great examples of people living their brand, because Apple wouldn't be Apple without Steve Jobs, and Virgin wouldn't be Virgin without Richard Branson, and Oprah, the OWN network wouldn't be the OWN network without Oprah Winfrey. They are able to do those things quite nicely. So I think the first thing that we need to really understand is like why we do the things we do in the first place. So it's really going back to your purpose. There's a really smart man called Simon Sinek who's written a book called Start With Why. And if you're a reader, get it. It's on Kindle. It's also on Audible. It's really a great book to read. But he's done a TED Talk called Start With Why, which is really at the crux of just getting down to the nitty-gritty of what we believe, like what are our values, what do we believe, and what drives our decision-making processes. And then he relates that to business and relationships and all sorts of things. And I think it's really about understanding, like, start with why. So that's the first thing, is what's your purpose? What's your calling? What's your why? Why do you do the things that you do? Why do you feel called to this ministry or called to this type of work that you're doing, or this type of business that you want to start? And if you don't know what that purpose is, it is also a really great exercise. And on the worksheet, I've given you the link to go and find the TED Talk and have a good listen, and some tasks that you can do after that about just really sitting down and understanding, what do I want for my life? What do I want for my business, and why do I want those things? What are the core things here that are at play in my life? What drives my behavior? What drives me to get up every day and do the things that I do? Like, where's my passion lie? So in order to brand authentically, you do need to understand a little bit about yourself and what your drivers are.
And that's
And
important
then,
because I think what we forget is
yeah,
that we're seeing somebody is doing something else and we think that it's, especially in the business world, I've seen this so many times. You think if you know their formula or their secret sauce, you can just duplicate them. But what's missing is that individual who's driving their brand. Like you're saying with Oprah, I mean, I know she's a big, well branded, like she wouldn't be selling alcohol. It's just not her authentic. And as well as like you hear branding is also, for instance, like you see an actor who is in a movie and you think, oh, he's such a nice character, he's playing this nice sweet character, you know, rom-com, whatever, and then you hear about him in the news and for real life and he's a jerk and you're like, oh, that's like weird, that's totally disingenuous and it kind of makes you feel yucky. So it's the same kind of thing as what I relate to, because branding, as I said, we can be very much a business term, but again, it's just being true to yourself. So go ahead with the next tips. I think that will be awesome.
It is. It's really about being true to yourself. And like each of these touch points comes back to that exact phrase, just about being true to yourself and not a carbon copy of what the world thinks you should be or what families say you should do or what other people have opinions you should be doing. It really comes down to what fulfills you, like where's your sweet spot, and sort of do all things in your life from that sweet spot, from that space where your gifts are. So the second point was about telling your story. And, you know, if you just look at your kids, how they're always dying for you to tell them a story before bedtime. And the reason for that is because it sparks all kind of dreaming and imagination. And I think that the minute you start telling your story to people, they start to believe that things are possible. And you never know how much your story could impact the next person. So from a branding perspective, I think telling your story just really helps people identify with you, your journey, where you've come from, what you've achieved, the challenges you've faced. And it makes you also seem really normal. Because sometimes people who are very successful and have branded themselves really well, we sometimes lose sight of the fact that, hey, they're actually just human beings like us. And it's really nice to be able to see somebody who's branded themselves in a way where they're still almost accessible because of their story, and also so inspiring. And so the average Joe, or somebody who might class themselves as an average Joe, might be able to listen to their story and see some inspiration there, and that there's hope. So your story is so important. And if you want to brand authentically, don't be afraid of it. It's there for so many reasons. A, to bump your brand a bit, which is great, but B, also for ministry and for teaching and for so many other reasons. Just like what we said just now about my journey, you know, oftentimes when I tell my story, people are like, oh my God, I didn't know that about you. Like, that's, wow, you've actually been through quite a bit. And I said, well, you know, to me, I can really, really sympathize with people and empathize with people that have gone through something really similar in their lives. But again, also I've dealt with the disappointment of having all these big dreams about going to Bible college and just never happened. But now in hindsight, I know why. So there's always, you know, that way to sort of share your story and be able to minister to other people. So your brand story is really, really important, or your personal story, should I say.
So what is the next tip? Because I know these are like some juicy things we can really learn from.
The next tip is just about keeping it real. I think it touches on a little bit about what we said earlier about how we sometimes feel like we need to be somebody like somebody else. We need to behave a certain way, or society says that this is how X, Y, and Z should be done. And so we try and carbon copy. And the problem with doing that is that oftentimes people will catch you out for being a bit, people can see when it's awkward. People can see when it's fake. People can see when it's forced. And that's actually not doing you any justice at all. So, you know, whether you're starting out in business or you've been in business for some time, or if you've got plans to do some big things in your life, or you're still trying to figure things out, I think it's just important to not get too hard on yourself, and just remember to just keep it real, like really just stay true to yourself. And specifically when it comes to branding, like it comes down to all the things around how you speak, how you present yourself, how you dress, how you enter a room, how you write, like in an email or on social media, like the words that you use. Branding encompasses all of those things. And it's really important that every touch point to really just stay true to who you are and really keep it real. Don't try and be something that you're not, because people see through that so quickly. And I think what I've learned in business up until this point as well is that people actually really dig it when you don't get it right, because or like even recording this video.
Right? Yeah, exactly. We're not perfect. Like, we're going to have the babies and the dogs, and this is life, right?
Yeah.
This is what happens. And I think it makes it more, we can identify with people when we feel like we are real, like we don't have it all together. And part of what I love about what everyone's sharing on the summit is that we take, God's taken our brokenness and he's been able to mold it and transform it into something new. But by being genuine, that's when our true selves shine out. Because here's the other thing, when you're being disingenuine or you're putting on a show or an act, it's very exhausting. You can only keep it up.
It really is.
It's like so exhausting. And then that's when it comes back to bite you.
That's the truth, hey. And like, a lot of people that I coach from, like, just even from a business perspective, will come to me and say, God, I'm so tired. This branding thing's hard, this marketing thing's hard. And I said, the only reason it's hard is because you're not branding yourself authentically. You're trying to be something that you're not. You're on social media channels you shouldn't be on. You're trying to do things that other people, just so-and-so's got a podcast, so you must start a podcast. No, do what feels right to you and real and authentic. So just keep it real. Just sit back and breathe a bit. It's really just about showing up as you are and because that's what people love the most. That's what people are drawn to. If we have to go back to sort of Bible times, like Jesus was exactly the same way. He just showed up as he was, and he expects us to do the same thing. Come as you are. And I think it's the same in kind of the branding space. It's just to be real and be who you are and embrace everything, warts and all, because people love about you.
Exactly. So what's the next step? So we got
the next step is to show up. So I think there's no use working on having a great personal brand or a great business brand or anything like that, or trying to sort of be really intense about being authentic and hide your gifts and talents. So it's really important for you to show up and get visible and let people see what you're about. I see this happen a lot of time in business, and clients will say, I'm really worried because I'm having like a bad month, and marketing, I was like, I always go back and say, well, what marketing activity have you done? Well, I did a couple posts on social media and one or two things on Instagram. And I said, well, that's really not sufficient. You've actually got to really show up. And authentic branding means that there's some consistency with it. So show up, but be consistent with it. And people are creatures of habit. So we need to be quite repetitive when it comes to anything business related around marketing and branding and things like that. There needs to be quite a lot of repetition, because people sometimes, we live in a very fast-paced world, and in order for you to stand out, we need to make sure that we're there and we're consistent and we're stable and all those things. But I think it's also just about showing up for your audience when they need you the most as well. It's not just about having distance between you and them. It's about showing up when they've got questions, about being there, having conversations, letting them know that you are just one question away or one message away, and just really making it easy for people to connect with you. I think sometimes the worst thing is when you're trying to buy from somebody and you don't know how to do that. You can't phone them, you can't email them, you don't know how to get hold of them.
It's kind of like having all the gatekeepers, right? The old days of the business was like the owner of the business has a secretary and nobody gets through her. And now we live in a day and age with celebrities are like, even the president or the celebrities you can reach on social media. You can retweet them. I mean, never in a time in history have we've had such accessibility to people that you can get to know their lives. And I know this can go like Kardashian wise, where it's a little OTT, a little bit too much. We don't have to know all the details. But again, I think it makes us more real, where you're sharing about your life. And yeah, you're a mom, like you and I are moms and entrepreneurs. And sometimes things work out, sometimes don't. Like, technical stuff works and things get sick and kids, that's just life. But I think by sharing that honesty with people, it makes you more endearing too.
I agree. It's, that transparency, just having that transparency with people and just being honest and real and upfront and showing up and just being there no matter what the circumstances. So it's not about like, oh, I can't do this thing because I don't have my hair and makeup done, or I can't do this thing because, who or whatever reason you come up with. It's just show up, just be there for people. We're in a day and age now where the opportunities to connect with people are ample. There is so much opportunity to connect with people. And I think really it's just about showing up and being present. When people comment on your social media, respond, ask them questions, keep conversations going, let people know you're accessible, that you're not like the worst. Just sort of on the other side of what you were saying, Mimika, is the worst thing a brand influencer can do is not allow themselves to be accessible. I find those types of people really, it puts me off a brand when I actually can't communicate with them and you don't get any feedback and there's no response, or they don't respond to things in media and stuff like that. I actually quite admire somebody who shows up and goes, yeah, we made a mistake. It happens. We're human beings and we can't reverse it, but these are the things we can do. But so even if it's a negative situation, just show up, be there, let people know that you are legit, at the end of the day.
So what's the next tip? Because I know you have one more to share.
Tip. And the last tip is just remember that it's about people. So branding is about people. And in the worksheet, I talk about brandships. And it's important to just connect with people as people. Remember that any form of marketing that you're doing always ends up being put in front of a human being. And that human being is just like you. They have the same emotions, the same stresses and struggles in life, the same challenges that they face. And it's just important for us to keep that element very much at the forefront of everything that we do when it comes to branding, whether it's in business or in personal branding or whatever it is. It's just that human. I actually feel like the it's about people should actually be number one. Or after you start with why, it should be up right at the top in terms of priority. But I left it at the end because it's really something to sort of sit and linger over and think about, because anything you do in your career, in ministry, anything you do, you're always going to come across people. And it's important to think about what kind of legacy do you leave behind. I remember very recently watched a YouTube video. It's called The One, and it's a motivational speech that was given by Les Brown, and where he talks about his headmaster in high school was giving the speech to the high school graduates of the year, and he didn't pass that year. He had to go back to summer school, but the headmaster was saying to all the high school graduates how the world will never be the same because you came this way. And it really is so true. We don't actually realize how much of an imprint we make on the people that we spend time with physically, or even if it's just a quick message over social media, or even if it's just a message that our brand messaging, when it's in business or whatever the case is. It's important to remember how much of an imprint you can make on just one human being, and never to take that for granted. So, I think it's just important to to remember that. I think as much as it's all about us when it comes to our branding and who we are and everything like that, we need to be careful to not let ego get in the way and remember why we started this in the first place, and to keep that human element front and center. So when you're speaking
it's hugely important. So, I mean, you feel like you're more of a human being, right? We can understand that you're speaking their language, because that's really what branding is. It's speaking the other person's language so they understand that you understand them, because then that makes a far deeper connection. And again, we live in a digital world, but at the end of the day, it's still relationships. Like I found you on social media, and also we got connected, a few years ago, and then we know somebody, we got Angela's one of our mutual friends, and you're like, oh, okay, so you actually create relationships from it. And I think that's what I love about it, is who you are online is the same as who you are in person. And that just makes me feel like I know you better. It really does help. So these are some awesome tips I've got to say, everyone. If you haven't downloaded it yet, go to mimikacooney.com and click on the Summit tab to download Ashley's great gift. You can go ahead and it's one of those things that you can go and revisit, right? Look over it and think about it. And it's a good exercise to help you feel really grounded, so you do come across authentically. And then if you haven't already done this, go and share this with your friends. I'm sure you know somebody who would really benefit what we've shared today. So go ahead and click the buttons below and to the side of this video. And if you're listening or someone forwarded you the email, go ahead and make sure that they know to share this. So I know we could sit here and talk all day about marketing and branding and, going into all the stories, because branding is super story related, which is what I love about it. But tell everyone, what's the best place they can get in touch with you?
The best place to find me is there's 2 places on the web that you can come and visit. That's the hellobosscommunity.com. If you are a woman in business and you're looking for a community to connect with, come and hang out with us over there. Or if you're wanting to connect with me personally, you can come and have a look at, you can find me on the ashleyknightcompany.com. But my favorite place to hang out, and that's where all my conversations happen, is on Instagram. So at Ashley Knight Co on Instagram, and do let me know if you come and visit me there that you've come via Mimika, so that I know exactly where you've come from.
Yes, tell her you found her online, right? Because we love to have these conversations. And even if you've had any aha moments or anything that Ashley said to you really stood out, go ahead and find her online, stalk her on Facebook and Instagram, and go and tell her you saw her on the summit. And also if you've used her exercises, and we want to celebrate those wins with you, so that we know that we can walk alongside of you. Because the whole point of this is not just to think it sounds like, oh, well, that's a nice idea. We actually want you to take action. So make sure you go and reach out, and then add your comments below this video. Any aha moments, any sort of wins that you have, we would love to hear back from you. And Ashley and I will be more than happy just to create the conversation and keep that going, right? So I got to say thanks so much, Ashley, for joining me all the way from South Africa. Even though we're like 7 hours between us, the time zone, we're still able to connect thanks to the likelihood of good technology. But thanks for everyone for joining us today on the Purpose Power Summit. Until next time, take care. Become a partner and join the Mimika TV family today.